In front of me today, I have a soft, rich custard like a creme brulee here. And then I have something that's a little bit more firm and glossy like this flan. And the main difference between the two comes down to two ingredients, the eggs or egg yolks. So in the case of a creme brulee, you have a richer, softer, silkier texture, and the egg portion or ratio of that mix is egg yolks. That differs from flan and creme caramel, something that can live outside of its custard cup. You would use whole eggs, or sometimes there's even an addition of egg whites as well. And that gives the firmness that you need to unmold a flan or a creme caramel. Now, the other difference is the dairy that goes into them. Creme brulee, it's typically made with a heavy cream, so something that has a higher fat content that gives it a richer texture. And usually with flans or creme caramels, you would use whole milk. Now, just to show you the texture of what I'm talking about, this creme brulee that we've made here, you can see the custard is very, very soft, and it would never be able to live outside of this ramekin. In comparison, this flan is living outside of its ramekin, and you can see that the texture is quite firm. It's still silky and delicious, but the thickness and the gelling potential really comes from the whole egg, and in particular the egg whites, which add structure and strength to this custard. I'm going to be making a flan. And how do we start that? Well, we start that with the caramel, which goes into the bottom of the ramekin. Add 1 cup of granulated sugar into the bottom of a small pot here, and to that I'm going to add 1/4 cup of water. Now, whenever I'm making caramels, I prefer to use the wet caramel method, which is what I'm demonstrating here today, and that is in adding a good amount of water. What that does is it helps to dissolve the sugar and help the sugar to caramelize evenly. When you're making a caramel, have a pastry brush and some water, and as this caramel is bubbling up, small little crystals of sugar might appear on the side of the pan. You can use the brush to brush any of those crystals down. And what works just as well is a lid, because what happens here is as the caramel cooks, it creates steam. The steam collects on the top of the lid, and then it trickles down the sides of the pans, washing those crystals back down into the sugar syrup. You want a really dark amber color, and that's going to take anywhere from 4 to 5 to even 6 minutes. So it's been about 4 minutes, and our caramel is just starting to turn a very, very light amber color. If your sugar syrup does crystallize, we made a video about this. Just go to our video, what to do if your caramel crystallizes, and you can easily fix it. Now, whenever you're making caramel, always remember the caramel will seem darker than it is in this pan, as opposed to when it will be in the bottom of your ramekin, because the pot is so dark. So don't fear this. Go a little bit darker than you might be comfortable with, because you really want that dark, developed flavor. And if your caramel is too blonde, it's not going to have the flavor you need. This looks good. I'm going to turn the heat off, and I have 6 6-ounce ramekins in front of me, and I'm going to evenly distribute the caramel into the bottom of each ramekin. You want to do this quickly because your caramel is still cooking. You want to let it cool slightly, and what you can do is you can pick the ramekin up. Be very careful here, guys, and you want to start swirling it around the cup slightly so it comes up maybe 1 inch along the side. And then you want to let these ramekins cool while you make the custard base. We're making a flan, so we're using 5 whole eggs. To this, I'm going to add 1 cup of regular granulated sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of coarse salt. Whisk these 3 ingredients together, and while this is kind of just hanging out here, I'm going to add the dairy portion to the pan. So I have 2 1/4 cups of whole milk. Again, we're making the flan, so we're using whole eggs, and we're also using lower fat dairy, which is the whole milk. And I'm also going to add 3/4 cup of coconut cream. Bring this up to a simmer, and then we're going to temper this hot milk mixture into our eggs so that they do not curdle. It's just about at a simmer here, and now I'm going to temper it into the eggs. Now, tempering, again, it's that process of bringing the temperatures of the 2 ingredients together. So if you added this hot milk in one dump, it would curdle your eggs. So you want to do it gradually. So I'll do maybe 1/4 cup, whisking constantly. I'll add a little bit more. The coconut milk, it actually does really add a wonderful flavor. It really smells great too. And the last bit. And now for a little bit of flavor, I'm going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Whoops. A hefty teaspoon of vanilla extract. If you wanted to flavor this with something else, you could certainly do that. A little bit of spice is really nice in a flan. You could also do a coffee extract, would be really wonderful here. Now, just for added security, I'm going to strain this mixture just in case there are any little fragments of egg white or something that hasn't been properly dissolved. Strain this mixture through a fine mesh sieve into a batter bowl or something with a spout that easily pours. So now evenly divide your custard between these ramekins. Make sure your oven is preheated to 325 degrees. You want the rack to be in the middle of the oven, and these custards will cook anywhere between 40 to 60 minutes until they jiggle slightly in the center. Another way to ensure that these custards are cooking evenly is to cook them in a water bath. So bring this pan to your oven, have a tea kettle of hot water ready. You're going to pour into the pan, and you want the water to come up halfway up the sides of the custard cups. So into the oven. The custards have been in the oven for about 45 minutes, and you want a slight jiggle in the center of the custards. You can see that it's slightly jiggling. You don't want to cook them beyond that, otherwise your custard can run the risk of over baking and it will be a little too firm. My weird little tip here is take some tongs and wrap them with small towels and secure them with rubber bands here, and it will help you remove these hot ramekins from the water. It kind of grips the ramekin, and you don't risk the ramekin slipping out from your tongs or burning yourself. So these will cool down to room temperature. That'll take about maybe 40 minutes to an hour, and then right into the refrigerator until they're completely cool, and then we'll be ready to unmold them. Our custards have been in the refrigerator. It takes about 6 hours, but they can go longer than that. Take a small paring knife, something that has a thin blade. A flexible blade is really helpful, and you want to glide the blade of the knife around the perimeter of the flan. Take your plate, invert it right over the top, and then you're going to give this a good flip, and hopefully your flan will come right out. If it gives you a little bit of trouble, what might be the issue here is just suction. So take the blade of the knife and gently coax the flan out, and if you release the suction, you should have a beautiful flan with a nice fluid caramel. Custards, they're relatively easy to make at home. It just depends on what type of custard you're going to be making. I hope that I've taught you guys something, and of course, if you have any kitchen conundrums, write in the comment section below. Let us know what you're doing using the hashtag kitchen conundrums. And as always, guys, come on, enjoy.